The type of verbal attacks that you're known for are conversation stoppers.
Can you give me one example of those?
Tiller the killer.
No,
Tiller the killer is
Tiller the baby killer.
Joining us now is Dr. Warren Hern. He's the director of the Boulder Abortion Clinic in Colorado. He's one of the few remaining doctors in this country who perform late abortions. He was a close friend of Dr. George Tiller. Dr. Hern, thank you very much for joining us tonight, and you have my condolences on the loss of your friend, Dr. Tiller.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it very much. And I think you've done a superb job in the last few minutes explaining some of the background. It's very chilling for me as a friend of Dr. Tiller and colleague to listen to the litany of the instances in which this man displayed this kind of behavior. And it illustrates the fact that I have been pointing out, that in addition to the incredible sadness and tragedy of Dr. Tiller's assassination, which is affected, devastating for his family and profoundly sad for all of us who are his friends and colleagues, that this was not the act of an isolated, single nutcase guy who just decided to go into some church and blow somebody away. This was a political assassination. And it is not isolated. It is the culmination of the inevitable result and product of 35 years of constant, relentless anti-abortion fanatics offering hate speech, hate rhetoric, and violence and intimidation, assassinations, and the general message that it's okay to kill someone like Dr. Tiller, who was a dedicated and conscientious physician, who was courageous, took great care of his patients, helped thousands of women and their families, who was a tremendous asset to our profession and our society. So it's really a tragedy, and even more grotesque because the assassination occurred in church when Dr. Tiller was unprotected and unarmed, passing out church bulletins to his fellow worshipers.
Dr. Hern, when you look at the federal response to this wave of anti-abortion terrorist violence that we've experienced over the last generation, on paper, the federal government appears to be devoting a lot of resources to keeping you safe, to keeping abortion providers safe, to making the practice of this type of medicine something that is not a life-threatening thing to do. I have to imagine that you appreciate what's on paper, but I want to ask how you feel about how well the people in your profession are really being protected in practice. Do you feel like law enforcement is taking the threat seriously and doing all they can?
Well, I do, but I also think that there's a limit to what their resources are and what they can do. There are a lot of people to protect, and I can't wear a tank. I can't work in a fortress. Some of my colleagues have, including Dr. Tiller, have built their clinics to a very high degree level of safety, but once you step out of that, then you're at great risk. I think that the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrance bill was wonderful, but it was signed almost in secret by President Clinton instead of in the Rose Garden surrounded by people whose lives it affected. The Republicans pulled the plug on this after they took control of Congress and cut the funding. So I think the law enforcement people, the federal marshals, are working under great difficulty in terms of shortage of resources and manpower. But I think that what we really need, more than just efforts to try to physically protect the security of the doctors, which is an almost impossible task, is presidential leadership. We need political leadership in this country, in which the President of the United States goes on national television and confronts this incredibly difficult problem and says very clearly the message that safe abortion is a fundamental component of women's health care, that women have the right to have safe abortions, that doctors should be able to help women without fear for their lives, that the anti-abortion terrorism violence, which has been so painful and obvious over the last 35 years, has to stop. It will no longer be tolerated. And the President should tell the anti-abortion people to go home and leave other people alone. Even the silent vigils in front of the abortion clinics, as happens in my office, is harassment and intimidation. It is not free speech. And I think that people need to understand that there's a difference between harassment of people who are coming for private medical care and harassment and free speech. There's a big difference. And I think that the anti-abortion leaders, including many of the political leaders like Jesse Helms and George W. Bush, Ronald Reagan, and many others, Randall Terry, the leader of Operation Rescue, have used highly inflammatory language which has invited and encouraged people like this assassin to go kill Dr. Tiller. And that kind of language is very harmful. President Obama made a wonderful speech at Notre Dame and offered an effort to be conciliatory and to encourage a common ground. But there is no common ground with fanatics who want to kill you. The only difference between the American anti-abortion movement and the Taliban is about 8,000 miles.
Dr. Warren.
And the Christian churches have been in the forefront of this kind of fanaticism.
Dr. Warren Hern, director of the Boulder Abortion Clinic, a friend of the Tiller family and of the late George Tiller, one of the doctors who's being protected by U.S. Marshal Service now, as many are around the country in the wake of this assassination. Thank you for your time tonight, sir. Good luck to you.
Thank you very much.
And if I could get my hands on Tiller, well, you know.